What's going on, everybody? So this is going to be the start of the build series of the Sworkz Zeus. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. So we're gonna pop open bag A. Hopefully in this series we can get through bag B, C, and D. That's what I'm hoping to do for this first portion of this build, and then the second part will be a couple other bags, and then I'm hoping to make this only like a 3, maybe 4-part series depending on how long it takes me to actually do this kit. So I got my tools over here, what I think I'll need. I've got my coffee, absolutely mandatory, of course. And yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and start popping this stuff open. Scalpel. So as I said, according to RC Network, he had a few minor glitches with his owner's manual. I'm hoping they fixed whatever that might have been, but we'll see once we get into this. So it looks like what you get in here are some sticker sheets, a couple of them, some window masks, body clips, antenna tube, and the battery straps. Very cool stuff, but that's not going to be until the very end. Looks like I got a piece of string. Thank you, Sworkz. Appreciate that. Alrighty, here's the owner's manual. Warning, all that stuff. That's cool. Yes, 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 yes. Alright, so we're going to need a bunch of stuff that I already grabbed. So first thing to do is open bag B. So we will open bag B. This is going to be the front and rear diff. Now, I'm going to thank Mark Davis again for this lovely, lovely mat. Thank you so much, brother. I love this thing. I use it constantly, as you can see when you see my face-to-face videos. Yeah, so we're basically just going to put these things together. Look very, very, very basic, easy. Has a couple things down here. Says fill differential with oil to about 80% above the gears. So you don't want to completely fill it, leave a little bit of gap. I will show you all this stuff, but I'm going to get this all ready to go, laid out, and then we'll be right back. Alrighty, so I got it all laid out to build this diff basically, and we'll just do that real quick. These mats are awesome because they're magnetic, so you can kind of set stuff where you want it, and it stays there. It's awesome. Okay, so basically you're going to open your chemical bag basically, or your oil bag, whatever you want to call it. The 3000 CPS or 30 cc, whatever. This is going to go in your rear differential, and then the 7000 is going to go in your front. So make sure you do whatever you need to do that's necessary to remember which diff is which. I'm going to build one diff right now for you guys, and then I'll do the other one, and then we'll be right back. But so you get your diff case here. You want to slide on one of the provided bearings onto the little nub there, and then you want to put a little bit of grease. Now I have this from a previous kit build. It does send you grease, but it's in a little round capsule type thing. These are a lot easier. I like these much better, so I'm going to use this, but this is not provided with the kit. Like I said, the kit does come with grease, but it doesn't come with this little squirter thing. So basically you just put it down in the bottom here, and it's pretty much just going to hold the little rubber washer you're going to put in there. So then you slide your output cup up through it. You're going to put your little orange washer on top, and then what I do is take a set of needle nose and slide it down. Make sure it fits in there nice and snug at the bottom with the grease around it. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then what we're going to do is put the pin in and then put the gear on it. Yep. So we got the pin right here that we will drop down in here. Needle nose pliers are your friends on kits. So make sure you have a decent set of them, and it will work out relatively well for you, hopefully. Yeah, slid right in there. So a little note I'll make is normally companies like that send kits or whatever run a little metal washer on top of that O-ring, and Sworkz didn't send one, so I don't think it's necessary with this kit, but that's actually kind of weird because they normally do. Like they normally, you normally have a little metal O-ring that goes over that, but gear drop down in there and that part is done. So now we're going to move to the top. So we're going to go with our 26 or 46 tooth gear, and we're basically going to do the same thing. We're going to put our bearing on. We're going to put our output drive cup through it and spray a little bit of grease in there, just like the other side. That was more than just a little bit, but it's not going to hurt anything. So now that that's on, I got the little rubber O-ring down on there. Just when you're putting that down on there, if you're using the needle nose pliers or you use your small hex driver, just be careful of that little O-ring not to damage it in any way. I know they're pretty resilient, they're pretty tough, but you definitely don't want to damage that. And then you put your pin through, much easier on this side, because you can just kind of slide it in there, where the other one you're down inside the diff. Just kind of try to get it as center as possible, so it's going to look like that. And then you just drop your gear down on it. Ta-da! Right like that. Alright, so now that both sides are done, we're going to go ahead and do the spider gears. So I'm going to be doing the front differential first. So I'm actually going to spray a bit of this down in there just to make sure it gets down in the bottom and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of coat the bottom of it all the way around with a little bit of this differential silicone oil. Not too much, but just get it started down in there, kind of like that. And then we're going to do our spider gears. So we got our spider gears all set up. So basically, it's got this little notch in the center. You're gonna keep that straight up on the first set of spider gears. So you put the gears on the shaft facing towards each other, like that. And then you're going to put one of these little washers on the outside of both sides. Right like that. And then you just drop it down in there. Spread the gears out accordingly. Making sure that notch in the shaft is up. It's going to look like that. And then you just do the same thing. Sorry, fingers are a little dirty. Then you're just going to do the same thing with this set. Except you want the notch in the shaft to be facing down on this one. So put the gears in facing each other, right like that. Put on your 2 washers. And then drop it in the other side. Making sure that those 2 notches slide into each other, and the end result should look like that. Now I'm going to fill this 80% full like the manual says, so you want to leave a little gap at the top. And what you want to do is you're going to want to fill this about 80% and then let it sit for a little bit to get all the air bubbles out. What I tend to do is kind of twist it around and then make sure everything's down in there nice and tight, and then I'll let that sit, let the air bubbles rise, and then I'll fill it to the top. Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, so while I was waiting for the air bubbles to rise and everything in the front diff, I went ahead and put the rear diff together. Now what I'm going to do is just top this off like it says in the manual, just 80%. So that's what I'm going to do here. About right there. That should be about perfect. Now, what I like to do, as I said on in my other kit videos, is I just put a couple small dabs of grease on this little washer right here, or seal, whatever you want to call it, and then I slide it in here, and the grease kind of helps hold it, because I do tend to want to walk around a little bit. So just kind of push it down gently, line the holes up, and the grease helps it stay where you want it. So right like that. And then what I'm going to do is just drop this down, lining up the holes on top, and then I'm going to put the 4 screws in it. And that is how you build your diff. So I'm going to go ahead and run these down. I'm going to finish up the rear diff as well, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we got the front and rear diff put together, completely torqued down and ready to go. So I'm going to set these aside. Make sure you can tell by twisting them. There's a little more resistance in the front one. So if you're doing a kit, I'm guessing you're probably going to be experienced enough to realize that when you twist it, it's got a little more resistance. But make sure you keep them orientated to where you know which one the front is and know which one the rear is. Because the reason the heavier oil is in the front is because in RCs, a lot of the times the power tends to bleed to the front when you're accelerating, because the front comes up and it's easier to spin the tires. So you put heavier oil in the front to combat that, so that it distributes the power more evenly. Now what we're going to do now is put the center diff together, which is bag C. Going over this, it looks pretty much exactly the same. It has a few minor differences than the front and center diff. Not enough that I would think that you guys wouldn't be able to figure it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the center diff together, and then I will show you the small differences. The only real differences are that the instead of having this crown gear here like these do, it just has a piece that the spur gear bolts to, and it gives you 3 different spur gears, a 45 tooth, a 46 tooth, and a 47 tooth. Now the higher tooth you go on the spur, if you want to gear down and go slower, you go higher on the spur and lower on the pinion, and then if you want to gear up, you go lower on the spur and higher on the pinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run the 45, and then I'm not sure what pinion I'm going to run yet. I think either a 16 or 17 tooth. I don't know if this kit even comes with the pinion, but I'm going to be putting the 45 tooth spur on here. Like I said, it does have 45, 46, 47, and as I just explained, the lower your spur tooth count, the faster your RC will go. I'm not sure how much of a difference it's going to make between the 3 spurs, but as I said, I'm going to go with the 45, but I would guess that most people would just go with the 46, the one right in the middle. I'm not, like I said, I'm not exactly sure how much it's going to change anything, and it is calling for the 7,000 weight, which would be the same weight that you used in the front diff. So just a few of those. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and pop this bag open, put it together real quick, and then I will show you the few minor differences. We'll be right back after that. Okay, so that is our center diff pretty much assembled. As you can see, like I said, the only real difference is that instead of having a crown gear, it has this like just top with like kind of like a T on it. And what you're going to do is take your spur gear, and it has like a little X kind of type looking thing. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then you're just going to slide it over the actual diff itself, lining up those holes, making sure it sits down in there like it's supposed to. You guys can see that. And then what you do is you take your little stubby screws that came in that bag with it, and then you just screw them through the back side like this. Now another thing that I just noticed about this is that this kit did not come with any thread lock. These little shorty screws right here that I'm screwing in are screwing in to metal. This piece on the front is metal here. So it is screwing into metal, but it does not call for and does not come with thread lock. So I'm going to go against what I would normally do, and I'm not going to thread lock these. Now if these end up falling out or the spur comes loose or something, I will remove it from the vehicle and thread lock these. But basically that's your center diff slash spur gear right there. Make sure you do screw in through the backside for the spur gear, and that's what it should look like. Once again, I went with the 45, but the cool thing is if I end up destroying that, I have 2 spares, and that's going to be for anybody that gets this kit. You'll have 2 spare spur gears that will gear you either up or down depending on what you decide to go with originally. Alrighty, so the next step here looks like opening bag D, and you're basically going to have your diff cases and put your diff cases together. So I'm going to open this up, get everything laid out, and we'll be right back. Alright everybody, so I got the stuff kind of laid out. I'm just going to build one of these diff cases, and then I'll do the other one off camera. They should be basically the same, but this one is bag D, and the first one we're going to be building is the front diff case, and the rear does look exactly the same. Yeah, Looks exactly the same. If there is any minute changes, I will absolutely let you guys know though. So now that all the bag parts are open, what we're going to do is take this sleeve here. This is just a plastic sleeve. It does have a little tiny nub on it, so to get perfect fittage, I'll just whittle that down just a tiny bit so it's nice and flush. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a bearing in this side and this side, and then slide it in the back of your diff case. Make sure you press it down in there nice and hard. That's basically your bearing retainer, so make sure you get it in there nice and deep. And then you get these 3 little shorty screws, and there's 3 little holes. Hopefully you guys can see that, and you just screw it in there. It just goes in there to hold that in. There's nothing that goes over the screws, no washers or anything. You just screw these in and they hold it. So then you're going to take your gear right here, put it through just like that, flat side up, and then it is calling for a thread lock. So I will be right back. I gotta go grab thread lock. It's calling for it on the grub screw that puts this onto the gear. So I'll be right back. Blue thread lock, got it. Okay, so this stuff tends to make a mess, so we're gonna put him on his own little paper towel. Okay, so now that that gear is through there, we're going to take one of our output cups, one of our grub screws that is provided, and what size is this? It is 2.5. So we're going to put it on the 2.5, put some thread lock on there, blue thread lock. Don't use red thread lock because you will never get it off. You can get it off, but it is much more difficult than the blue, and the blue tends to hold very well. Okay, thread this in there first before we slide it on, just a little bit. Alrighty, so what's next? What is next is to put on this piece. So we're going to put this piece on here like that, and it's going to get two of the longer screws, not crazy long but longer, which are provided right in the baggie. I'll tell you guys what, this little setup right here, this hyper torque thing, you can get for like 10 bucks from Walmart with the MIP drivers that you can pick up at A-Main that are like 37 bucks. But I'll tell you, doing all this by hand is very difficult. Your wrist and everything gets tired. Now what I tend to do is run them down with that, and then I tighten them with feel by hand with the hand drivers. I did that for everything. I did it for the diffs and everything. So now that piece is on. That's going to be a hinge pin mount or hinge pin retainer. So that part of the diff is done. Now it's calling for the diff to be set in the diff case, and we're going to get 2 shims, but the 2 shims are going to go on the far side of the diff. So here's our front diff. It's calling for us to put it in like this, and it's calling for the 2 shims to be put on this far side over here. So we're going to go ahead and do that, slip those 2 shims on, And then we're going to drop it down in here, making sure the shims are lined up, bearings are lined up. And it does not call for grease. Like crown gear and pinion gear. I'm actually just gonna put a little bit of grease on this anyways, because I know I'm not gonna do a whole bunch, just a little bit, but it's just to lubricate those gears and have a little bit of something in there. Like I said, I'm not gonna do much, just that much. But then the front of your diff case is going to slide up over, hopefully. There we go, popped in nicely. Sweetness. And then we are just going to screw the top screws in, it looks like. So we'll take our screws that are provided here and run them in. Like I said, I don't go with this thing, I don't go till it's tight, I just go to the close, right like that, and then I finish torquing by hand. That way I don't strip out the plastic, and you can feel when it gets nice and tight, just like that. And with plastic, you never want to overdo it. Alrighty, so that is going to be our front differential and case. Everything feels nice and smooth. Very, very good. We will set this aside. This is our front diff, so we're going to set this aside. We're going to do the rear diff, and then I will let you know of any changes, and then we'll be right back after that. Alright everybody, so the only difference between the front and rear diff case was this hinge pin mount, or suspension pin mount. It's just different. It's the aluminum one that comes in the bag. It's different than everything else that comes on the parts trees and stuff, so you'll be able to distinguish it very, very easily. So basically, yeah, we're through bag D. It's calling now for bag E. On the rear diff, you want to set it up exactly the same, with both of the shims going to the one side. And yeah, this is going to conclude the first part of this build. Like I said, I was shooting to get through bag D. We have got through that. We do have a bunch of parts sitting here, but it's not calling for any of these just yet. It looks like bag E is going to start with the, looks like, front lower A-arms. So we'll get into that in the next video, but please thumb up if you like this one, thumbs down if you didn't. This kit is going together very, very smoothly. Everything looks to be very high quality and very well put together. I can't wait to get this kit done and get it out bashing. Alright everybody, please check out that description and subscribe if you're new here. We got a ton more coming at you from K.O.R.H Hobbies. I'm your host Gary. Until next video, we'll see you then. Peace.